Hello everybody, this is Dave Lewis, and today I'm going to be doing a basic tutorial for beginners to Kerbal Space Program on how to get to the moon and back again. And in order to do that, I'm actually going to start game, and I'm going to start a new game so that I'm starting off on a fresh foot and not using stuff I already have. Okay, we have our lovely Kerbal Space Center loaded up here. We have like the command center where you can view all your missions in progress and where all of your people and ships are at. We have the rocket construction building, the launch pad. We have a hangar over here where you can build airplanes, space planes, etc. And then, of course, we have the Kerbal Academy where we can train up more Kerbals. And yeah, that's the basics. So let's go to our rocket construction building here. And we'll go ahead and build our ship to the moon. Now, the first thing that you'll need to select whenever you build anything is one of these command modules. So for my moon trip, I'm only going to send one guy, so I'm going to pick this small pod here. Just click on it. It appears on the screen. To give myself some room to work, I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to scroll up, and then unclick. So I have it hovering there. Now, we want our guy to get home safely, so we're going to put a parachute on this thing. So this utility tab up here, if you click on that, you get a whole host of options. Now, I'm going to pick this parachute here. Just click on it. Oh, that's a bit big. I'm going to pick this parachute instead. Then I just hover over top, click, and it's attached. Now you'll notice here on the right, as we attach stuff, we are getting these stages, and that'll become important later on. I'll explain more once we have a few more to work with. Okay, so that's the basics. We have our capsule with our Kerbonaut inside. We have our parachute. Now we need propulsion in order to provide us with a lander so that we can land on the moon and take off again. So I'm going to come to this tab up here called Propulsion, and I have a whole bunch of different fuel tanks and rocket boosters that I can use. I'm going to pick this fuel tank here, just attach it there. Oh, before I do that, when we re-enter Earth's atmosphere, or Kerbin's atmosphere, we want this to decouple by itself. So before I attach that fuel tank, let's go here to Structural tab. And we notice we have some options here in decouplers. So I'm going to pick this one, attach it to the bottom of my capsule, and I can reattach the fuel tank. What that decoupler will allow us to do is, when we activate it, it'll separate the capsule from the tank. Hence decoupling it. Pretty basic, right? Okay, so we have our fuel tank. We need a rocket booster to help us land. So back on the propulsion tab, I think I'm just going to pick this LV909 and attach it to the bottom there. Seems to be a pretty good booster. And now we need a way for our lander to be stable when it lands. So I'm going to go back to this utility tab here, and I'm going to add some lunar lander legs. Now instead of trying to get them all equal on my own, I can come down here in the bottom left where the circle with the dot is, and if I click on it a couple times, I can get symmetry mode. So I have it set up for 4x symmetry. Notice what happens when I put this lander leg on now. They are all symmetrical. So I'm going to just click, and I have 4 lander legs attached. Beautiful. Okay, so that's our basic lunar lander. We want our little Kerbin to be able to get out of the capsule and walk around on the moon a bit. So we need a ladder for him so he can get back in, right? That's also on this utility tab here. I'm just going to pick this ladder. Oh, turn symmetry off, or back to 1. And I am just going to attach it right like that. So now he can climb in and out of his capsule. Okay, now we need a way to get this thing to the moon. So, I'm going to go back to my structural tab, pick another decoupler, attach it to the bottom of that engine there. That way we can decouple our landing module. And now I'm going to have to throw on some fuel tanks to get it into Kerbal orbit and over to the moon. So I go back to my propulsion tab, and I'm going to pick these FLT800 fuel tanks. I'm going to grab one, attach it to the bottom there, and you know what? I'm going to add another one just to make sure I have enough fuel. So I attach 2 tanks there in series. I'm going to add a booster on here, and I think I'm going to pick the LVT30 liquid fuel engine. I've been pretty happy with those. So there we go. Now, if you've been wondering how I've been maneuvering around the page, I can scroll on the mouse and it'll move up and down the rocket. If I hold down the Shift key and scroll, I can zoom in and out. Then if I right-click and hold, I can toggle it around. Some of you probably figured that out, but if you hadn't, I apologize, and there you go. Now you know. Okay, so here's a basic rocket. I don't think that's going to be enough fuel to get us to our destination, so I'm going to add several more fuel tanks around the edge. So what I'm going to do is go back to the structural tab, and I'm going to pick these TT70 radial decouplers. I'm going to click on those, and I'm going to pick 2x symmetry, and I could just attach it right like that. So now I have one on either side. I'm going to do that again right here. Make sure they're lined up. So now I have 4. Now the reason I didn't do 4x symmetry there was because then and if you notice over here in staging, it puts them in groups of 2, which makes it easier to edit my staging later. Okay, so now I'm going to attach some more of the same fuel tanks from our propulsion tab here. And I'm just going to hover over that guy. Try to adjust them so they're roughly the same height. Click. Make sure they're attached. They are. And I'm going to add another fuel tank to the bottom here. Perfect. Now let's do the same for the other 2 decouplers. Get it lined up there. Click. Make sure it's attached. It is. Now attach my other 2 fuel tanks right here. Perfect. Now I bet that will be a bit wobbly if it's just supported by those brackets there. So what I'm going to do is come over to the structural tab, and I'm going to pick these strut connectors. And I'm just going to put some struts between my rockets here and the main body to help stabilize it. And I'll stabilize the top. Now let's stabilize the bottom. I'm going to put 2 on the bottom. Oh, come over a little bit. There we go. Now notice I'm doing this in 2x symmetry. It saves a bit of the monotonous work. Because if you notice, I'm also getting attachments over there. Now when we decouple these fuel tanks, these struts will just break right off, and no worries. It's just the flying portion that we want this to be stable so it doesn't shake itself apart. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Let's put some rocket engines on the bottom of these fuel tanks. We'll just pick the same one that we used for the middle. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think that will get us where we want to go. Isn't it a beautiful thing? Okay, now let's edit our staging over here like I promised. So these stages will go in reverse order. In other words, we'll start with 6, then we'll activate 5 using the space bar, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, etc. So the parachute is the last thing we want to deploy as we re-enter Kerbin's atmosphere. But let's start from the beginning. So I'm going to want all of my rockets to fire at once. So I have the 4 outer ones selected here and my 1 center one. So I'm just going to click on that and drag it so that all rockets are firing at once. Now, both my decouplings are happening in the same stage here, which is not what I want. So if I hit that little plus, I get an extra stage, and I can decouple them separate. So let's just put this one down here. So we're going to decouple the left and right fuel tanks first, and then the front and back ones, as viewed from this orientation. But in order to make that work, I'm going to do a little bit of staging here, such that the tanks I decouple first will be empty of fuel, and the others will still have fuel. Now to do that, I'm going to just go back to the propulsion tab and pick these yellow fuel line things. They're one directional. So if I just click on this tank, take it over, click on that one, fuel flows in that direction. So when this tank empties, I'll decouple it, and these 3 tanks will still be full. And notice it did it to the other side because I'm still on 2 times symmetry. Now, I want the center rocket to be full when I decouple the other 2. So I'm just going to take the fuel line again, and I'm going to attach it to the main body. So now fuel is flowing in a circular path and always to the center, which is exactly what we want. Okay? Okay, so looking at our staging again, we have our boosters, decouple, decouple, and this is the decouple for our lander, which is what we want. And I'm going to put the firing of the lander engine in the same as the decouple. So then we're flying our lunar lander. When we're coming back, we decouple our capsule, and we deploy the parachute. And I'm going to put those in the same as well. So that's our basic staging, our basic rocket, and we're ready to go to the moon. You can rename it up here. I'm going to call it the Luna 1. I don't know. And we are ready to save and launch. Here's our rocket. We'll wait for the physics to load. And we're loaded. Notice how it's a bit wobbly, and it looks like some of the pieces might fall off. You know what? I'm going to hit escape, revert flight to vehicle assembly building, and I'm going to put some launch supports on this so that it doesn't wiggle on the launch pad like that as much. So just really quick, I'm going to go to my structural tab, pick these launch stability enhancers, and I'm just going to attach them right like this. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to grab them here. I want to stage them all together, and I want them to release at the same time my boosters fire. Okay. That'll help us with stability on the launch pad, so let's relaunch. Okay, here we are. I'm waiting for my little, hey, Jebediah Kerman. He looks happy today. We're ready to launch here. Now, I have my staging over here. In the bottom left, it kind of shows you your pitch, roll, and yaw, and you control those with WASD on the keyboard as you're flying. Up at the top, you have your altimeter, shows you your atmosphere, your progress through the Kerbin atmosphere. You also have lights, gears, and brakes, if you've included parts that have those, you can activate them there. So, our basic launch sequence, I'm going to hit T, and that turns on SAS here at the bottom. And SAS stands for like Stability Augmentation System or something like that. It helps maintain my ship stable. And if I hit the caps lock key, that'll turn on fine controls so that it doesn't maneuver or wiggle around a lot. It'll try to keep it finely tuned to the direction I want it to go. And then we're ready to launch, so I hold down the Shift key, and notice I'm throttling up here down at the bottom on my nav ball. So I'm at full throttle now, and when I hit the space bar, it'll activate the first stage, and each subsequent stage will also be activated by the space bar. So I'm going to zoom out here and hit it. And there we go! We are off to the moon! So I can see my surface velocity here, and when I get to about 150 meters per second, I'm going to throttle it back to maintain 150, because I don't want to push too strongly against the atmosphere, or else I'm just wasting fuel. So we're at 100 now, just waiting till we get to 150. Okay, I'm hitting the control key, just tapping it, throttling back a little bit, and I think that'll be good. Now notice here on the left in our staging it's showing my fuel tank progress. Our first two to decouple are getting pretty close. So when those empty and the rockets stop firing, I'm going to hit spacebar and decouple them. Looks like our speed's coming up, so I'm going to tap control a little bit more. And ready, decouple. And there they go. Doing pretty good so far. Now up here on my altimeter, when I get to about 10,000 meters, I'm going to lean to the side about a 45-degree angle and start creating a more circular orbit around Kerbin. Okay, we're about 10,000. I'm going to hit D on the keyboard and slowly roll over to the 45-degree position. And went a bit far, holding down A to bring me back. Now if you want more control, you can put RCS fuel tank on this and some RCS thrusters. I'll probably show you those in a later tutorial. But you know, this is working for us now. You know, I think that's a pretty good angle, and stability control should hold us there. I'm going to throttle all the way back up. And while we're sitting there, I'm going to hit the M key, which will take me to map mode, where I can see my current progress. I can view my apoaps, which is, in this instance right here, is the apex. If I were to cut my engines, I would drift up to apoaps. And here at the bottom, I can click this little arrow and get my nav ball, so I can view my progress from this screen as well. Okay, when that gets to about 100 kilometers or 100,000 meters, I'm going to cut the engines and then we'll go from there. But viewing my fuel here, hit the M key to get back. I'm about ready to decouple again, so I'm waiting, standing by. And decouple, spacebar. Looking pretty good, I think. Jebediah seems to be having a great time, all smiles down there in the corner. I think that's going to be plenty of fuel to get us to our destination, so I'm going to watch my apoaps now as I prepare to cut the engines. Just by hovering over it, oh yeah, this blue trace shows my ship's flight path if I were to cut engines right now. And to cut engines, I'm just going to hit the X key, X, and engines are cut, and I can prove that. Coming over here to M, engine is cut, we're not wasting any more fuel. So back in map mode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this blue line near the apoaps, and I'm going to add maneuver. And this is a handy little tool. It allows you to adjust your orbit. I'm going to pull down on this green guy here. That'll expand my orbit out, circularize it around Kerbin. Okay, now if I hover over, I can look at the The apoapse is over here now at 216 meters, and periapse is at 101. So that's a bit eccentric. I'm gonna pull it down a little, get them roughly even. A little bit more. You know what? That's close enough. We're heading to the moon. We don't need a perfectly circular orbit. Okay, so I'm drifting to this maneuver node. Now, if you look on the nav ball, it shows you estimated burn time to circularize your orbit for this particular maneuver. It shows you node in time, so we got 1 minute 14 seconds till we reach that maneuver node. And here on the nav ball, I can move around a bit, and you notice this blue target appeared. Now if I align myself with the blue target for this burn here, I'll be right on course. It throws this blue target up on the nav ball to facilitate you in doing your maneuvers. So I'm just going to hover right over that right there. And we got 45 seconds left to do our 50-second burn. I want to do a 50-50 burn, which means half of this burn time I'm going to do before we get to 0 seconds, and the other half is going to be done as we count back up from 0. So here at about 25, I'm going to hit the throttle all the way up, and I'm going to let that burn. Now if you watch this blue line, you will notice it's creeping out, and it's getting closer to the dotted yellow line, which is exactly what we want to happen. Just using WASD keys to make sure my little cursor stays on that blue target. Looking good. Now, when you get close to the end of your burn, it's going to start wiggling all over the place. Just stay stationary. And X. Cut those engines. I think that is close enough. That'll work. So I'm just going to remove this maneuver node now. And there I am, in a circular orbit around Kerbin. Not too difficult. Now to get to the moon, I'm going to zoom out a little bit more using the scroll. I'm going to click on the moon and set as target. There we go. That is our target. Now, in order to get to it, I'm going to pick a maneuver node that's roughly aligned with it so that when I reach out here, I'm at the same spot as the moon. Let's click, I think about here might work, and add maneuver. And now I'm just going to expand my orbit out. Zoom out here. Expand, expand, and bam. Okay, so we hit here. Oh, look at that. So the moon's going to be this far back, and I'm going to be over here when I cross its orbit path. That's no good. We need an interaction, so we need to hit the moon when it flies by. So that's not going to work. That 90 degrees thing I just talked about, I think that's better for min-miss, if you're heading to min-miss. So let's redo that. I'm just going to click on here. It takes some finicking with it to get it sometimes. It's a lot of guesswork. There are tools out there to help you take some of the guesswork out of it. Now see how that flight path just went all crazy. That's because I have an interaction now. So when I get out to that point, I will interact with the moon, and I'll be able to be captured by it. So you know what? I think that's good. It's a 37-second burn. Checking my fuel here. We have plenty of fuel. We can make it. Okay, so that maneuver node's on the back side of the planet. I have 29 minutes. And now I'm just going to time warp. And to do that, I hit the period key a couple times. And time is ticking by faster and faster. And I'm just going to fly around to that node. "12 minutes. getting close. Now to untime warp, I'm going to hit comma key. So tap, tap, tap. 25 seconds till burn. Just line up with my blue target here. I'm going to do a 50-50 again. So at about 20 seconds, I'm going to, oh, right now. I'm going to start the burn. Have my finger on the X key, ready to stop it, and bam! Oh, we went a little too far. Okay, that's easy to fix. I can just roll my ship over here to the prograde vector. Oh, I mean retrograde, which means I'm slowing myself down versus speeding up. So here it is, retrograde vector, and I'm just going to throttle a little bit, bring this down, and bam! There's our interaction. Perfect. So now let's remove this node here. Now the blue path is the one I'll travel, and when I interact with the moon, the gravity is going to make it such that my orbit changes. That's used in orbital mechanics to get yourself to other planets, slingshotting, etc. But we're not going to do that. We want an interaction with the moon. So I'm going to go ahead and time warp to this point up here, the moon encounter, by hitting the period key. Time warp. Here comes the moon, coming out of the bottom right corner of the screen. We're getting close to our encounter. I want to hit this comma key when I get to that encounter. Take me out of time warp, so I don't fly past it on accident, right? Slowing down, and almost there. There we go. Now notice how my blue path just changed. Well, we changed frame of reference so that we are now, any orbital mechanics we do on here will be in relation to the moon. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my blue line here and add a maneuver. I want to use this other green symbol here, pull on that, and boom! Get captured by the moon. Perfect. Now I'm going to pull it in a little bit more so that my periaps is about 45. Or 50. I mean, it's like 30 to 70 range. You know, that's good enough. We'll do that. So now I'm going to do this 11-second burn in 1 hour. I'm just going to get myself lined up with my blue target, time warp, and execute said burn. And period key. Slowing down my time warp. Don't want to fly past my burn opportunity, right? That wouldn't be good. 1 minute. And, you know, that's close. Make sure I'm still lined up. Standing by for burn. I'll burn at about T-minus 5 seconds, so I can do a 50-50 burn on either side of that, that node in time. Okay, throttling up. Now I'm hovering over the X key here. I don't want to, oop, I got a little excited. Watch my periapse. Oh, now be very careful in this part here. You don't want to overdo it or you'll end up, that blue line will crash into the moon's surface. I'm just going to line up my target here again. Do a nice slow burn. Watching these meters per second. I'm not going to chase it much. Yeah, that's close enough. Periapse 72. You know what? That'll work. So get rid of that maneuver node. Perfect. Now we've been captured by the moon. So let's time warp to this periapse position. And we'll circularize our orbit. Ba-ba-ba-bum. Okay, let's set up our maneuver node. Add maneuver. I want to circularize, so I'm going to pull it down. Apoapse 74, periapse 70. That's pretty darn close. I think that'll work. So I'm going to roll over, find my target. There it is. Line it up. We got 22 minutes till the burn. So I'm just going to get them on top of each other and then time warp, so I'm ready. Okay, speeding up time. And we're good. Execute burn. Boop. Perfect. Dump that maneuver. There we are. We are around the moon. Now if you get out of map mode, ooh, look at that. It's a beautiful thing. We made it and we still got enough fuel to start slowing us down as we prepare to land. Perfect. So there's some interesting features on the moon, some Easter eggs that you can go ahead and find. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to touch us down here. And I want to do it right about now because I want to still do it while we're on the light side of the moon before we lose the sun. So to do that, I'm just going to hover over my retrograde vector here and I'm going to start burning. And notice that's going to come down. Down, 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 down. Reducing my velocity. Have a collision course. Yay, yay, yay. Yeah, I think that's good. Cut engines. And actually, I think we're out of fuel. We are. You know, that's perfectly fine. Hit spacebar. Decouple that puppy. And now, since I have confidence that we're going to land, hitting the G key, which will bring down our landing gear. Yes. Okay. So now we're ready to slow ourselves down and come to a landing. So throughout this whole procedure, I want to keep on my retrograde vector so that my landing gear hits the surface first and not my nose cone. That would be bad. So let's get started. I'm going to throttle up a little bit. That'll slow down my speed, using WASD to stay on that retrograde vector. Watching my velocity with respect to the planet coming down. And our altimeter says we are coming down as well. Now this is with respect to sea level. So don't expect that when this hits 0 that you're just barely landing on the surface. If you land on a hill or a mountain or something, that could be upwards of a couple thousand meters. So be aware of that. When we get close, we're going to start using the shadow of our capsule here to guide us in all the way. That's why it's good to land when there's light on the side of the planet. It sucks landing in the dark. Alright, you know, we're doing pretty good. I'm going to cut engines and just let us drift. We got a ways to go before we encounter the surface. I actually time warp at this point. If this is your first time, I don't recommend that. slowing down, kind of getting an idea of where we're at. I'm going to cut my velocity again because we're getting close. Making sure to always stay on that retrograde vector right there. Can we see our shadow yet? Not yet. Looks like we might land right in that crater. That'd be kind of cool. See, it started to drift away because I was not slowing my downward velocity anymore, but starting to go up. It was going to switch over to the prograde vector. I want to keep the retrograde right there. I'm picking up speed again because I cut thrusters and I'm falling towards the surface. But the gravity's so low, I still have plenty of time and fuel to compensate for that. So I'm just going to drift here until we get a little bit closer. There's the sun. Sun's right there. So we should see our shadow coming in close to us here in a little bit. And zoom out. Ooh, okay. Velocity's getting up there again. I just want to halt that before it gets too high. You want to hit the surface going usually no more than 3 meters per second. And when it comes to landing, we'll slow way down, but for now I'm just kind of getting close. I'm going to keep my engine on a low burn just to kind of stabilize velocity. We might land on that slope there. That'd be interesting. We might topple over, but oh, well, I think we'll be okay. Do we see our shadow yet? Shadow anywhere? Anywhere? I'm going to slow down a little bit more. We're getting really close now. Oh man. It's going to be close. We couldn't have picked a worse spot to land, could we? Right on the rim of that crater where it's all uneven. Oh my, yes. Dear, dear, dear. Slow way down now. Cut. We are getting close. There's our shadow. Aha! Use that as my guide. Slow down. Want to come in gently, 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 gently. We got a lot of horizontal velocity. Oh, look at that. He's a champ sliding down that slope. But you know what? We've landed. Just slide down to the bottom here. I'm glad this design was fairly stable. Now, when you do your moon landing, try to pick a more stable spot. It'll be a lot easier than trying to land on this slope here. And while that's sliding, I'm going to right-click on Extend My Ladder. So he's ready to go when this finally comes to a stop. Yes, it came to a stop. Now I can click EVA on my little Kerbonaut, and there he is! He can come down, visit the surface of the moon, and hit spacebar to let go of the ladder. Yeah, man! Woohoo! Oh, look at that lunar gravity. So, we made it. I'm going to right-click on Jebediah here, and I'm going to plant the flag for Kerbin. Because we have made it to the moon. Beautiful. And I can name this site. I'm going to call it Moon Base 1. I don't know. Come up with something creative and add something. Yippee. I don't know. Add whatever you want. Cool. Yeah, I promised we'd get you back to Earth, or Kerbin, so let's go ahead and head that way. Get close, hit F to grab the ladder, climb up, and F to board. So let's pull in our ladder. And it's time to take off. Now on the moon, when I take off, I'm going to go about to the 45-degree position right off the bat. Because the gravity's so low that I can do that. Hit G again to bring in my landing gear. That's it. We've been to the moon. Time to head home. I certainly hope we have enough fuel to do so. We have about half a tank left. That first half was spent all landing. Hopefully this last half will get us all the way back to Kerbin and re-entry. Let's keep your fingers crossed, right? I'm going to throttle up just until this blue line breaks, which means we escaped the moon. Watching for it, and then I'm going to hit X. Go, there we go. X, cut my engines. Okay, that means we're escaping the moon, so I'm going to time warp to that point. Boom! Back in orbit around Kerbin. At the apoapse, my slowest point, I'm going to pull this in, and I do not care about a circular orbit. We just want to crash into the surface of Kerbin. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and time warp to that point. You know what, close enough. Don't matter much. So let's shrink our orbit down, praying that we have enough fuel. We just need a collision course with Kerbin to be golden. Please, please, have enough fuel! Variaps, coming down, coming down, coming down. Ooh, perfect. Collision course. I'm going to cut engines there in case we, heaven forbid, we need maneuvers later. And you know what? We're ready to go in and land. So let's time warp, get close to the surface. Ooh, that could have been bad. Time warping myself into a crater of my own making. Close, close, close. Oh, and slow down. Oh, we may land on the dark side. Oh dear. Well, at any rate, we can do the rest of this in our scenic mode as we come around the planet to the light side. I can kill velocity even more. Get rid of the rest of this fuel here. We're going to jettison the tank anyway to deploy our parachute. If we look in map mode here, ooh, coming in close. Beautiful. We got back with a lot more fuel than I expected. Okay, I'm going to jettison that, which also activated my parachute, and we're ready for re-entry. Woo! Make sure, again, to stay on your retrograde vector, you want your heat shields ready for re-entry. Don't want to burn up the wrong part of the capsule or murder your parachute. And we're waiting. We'll start burning through the atmosphere any minute now. There we go. Don't worry, these heat shields are pretty substantial. Ooh, our chute did deploy a little early there. I should have probably had that in a different stage, but you know, even with the flames, I think we're going to be okay. This particular parachute is pretty stable. Pretty substantial, I should say. And it's just massacring our velocity, which is great. That's exactly what we want. If you hit the surface going, what, 20 meters per second or more, you'll murder your Kerbonaut, even if you hit the water. So be careful. I apologize that this is black. I hope you can still see it. Yeah, maybe if I line it up with the Milky Way there, it'll be easier to see the capsule and the chute. I just timed warped a little through this. Now, when you get to about 500 meters, the chute will deploy. You don't want to warp past that, or it could rip the parachute off. So I'm going to slow down now. 500, and we're deployed. Our surface velocity is 6 meters per second. We're going to land right there in the ocean. And our little Jebediah made it to the moon and back again. What a fantastic voyage. And now you have the basic tools that you yourself can make it to the moon and beyond. Visit other worlds, explore other moons, and have a wonderful time with Kerbal Space Program. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it helped you. And Godspeed. Safe flying.